Once again, Virginia's in the national news. Thanks to Democrats' radical proposals, this time it's a stunning battle broiling over the Virginia Military Institute. In an effort to push DEI, Democrats are threatening VMI's leadership and funding. And even the Pentagon is jumping in, warning this could jeopardize the training of future military officers. But we celebrate a rare and significant victory. A euthanasia bill went down in flames after Democrats defected. We're also sharing thoughtful and frustrated feedback from you, our viewers, trying to make sense of it all. From the Family Foundation, I'm your host, Candy Cushman, with our president, Victoria Cobb. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you with us for Speak Up Virginia. And here we are, Victoria, yet again, still in the national news as the warning label for the rest of the nation when leftists take over. And this time, we're in the news because they have been going after one of our most treasured institutions, the Virginia Military Institute. Now, I had the opportunity to visit there, and I just, the campus was so beautiful. Everything was historic, and it's just sad to think about them threatening this. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, this one actually hit me, broadside. I didn't see this coming at all, and I don't know if others did, but this is a very interesting thing they've decided to do, and very radical. What they're doing is they're proposing a couple of bills through our General Assembly that essentially the first one would dissolve the VMI board, the governance board, and put the oversight of the school under another school, Virginia State University, and put it under their board. Now, for folks who aren't familiar with these two schools, they aren't near each other. They don't have that much in common. One is a historically black university. One is this military university. I mean, they're just totally different.
I mean, they're like more than 2 hours away.
Yeah,
right?
They're totally different schools. So I have no idea who came up with this very creative power grab, but it's a stunner. So that's the first bill.
Wait, is the other school even a military school?
Not that I know of.
Okay, well,
it's not known that way. It's known for a lot of other things. It's not known, VMI is known. That is all about the military. That is, anyway, yeah. So it's kind of a wild idea. And I haven't seen this with two other universities. I haven't seen this happen before. Maybe it has. This is a really, really radical idea. And then another bill establishes a task force to study whether it should be stripped of all state funding. So that would just, it would turn it into if it gets stripped from state funding, but it's under another state school. I mean, it's like one or the other. I don't know, but either way, it no longer is the school that it has always been. I mean, you can't maintain those things that make it distinctive if that's where this goes.
Yeah. Well, the big news is the federal government jumping in, the Pentagon, the Department of War, saying
Secretary Pete has jumped in.
They're basically saying they're talking about the institution's great role in training up officers. For decades, hundreds of officers coming out of that, Rhodes Scholars, and they're saying that that's going to be jeopardized, and that's actually going to hurt our country's defense efforts.
Yeah, I appreciate them saying something because there's no question how many officers do come out of there and how important it is. And I think this administration has really focused on building up the military, not sort of letting it wane. And so I think that's incredibly important. So it is going to disrupt that pipeline. There's no way it doesn't if you radically alter the school. And this VMI, for people who maybe aren't Virginians seeing this, VMI has an unbelievable alumni network, an incredibly tight, incredibly loyal folks who have gone there for generations. Mm-hmm. It's sort of a generational school. If your father or grandfather went there, you're likely to go there. I mean, that is its legacy. So this has stirred an uproar beyond what, some schools, maybe you could get away with this a little less uproar. This one, you're not, you are upending. A lot of people are mad.
Well, it kind of makes me think about what we've heard and what we've seen play out, that when leftists get in control, they tear things down. They do not build up. And I want to know, what is the big sin that VMI has done that they deserve to, possibly have their funding cut, their authority stripped? What's the big sin here?
Well, it's a woke thing. It's a DEI thing. So it goes back 2021. They did a study of VMI and determined that it was, underperforming in its wokeness. That's a very slang way of saying that they didn't reach their opinion about what, there were grievances on gender and race. I don't know. I honestly did not dig into that study deeply. But usually you don't fix something by just literally shutting it down, which is what it feels like they're attempting to do, throwing it underneath wiping out its distinctiveness. They're not trying to improve it. They are trying to completely radically undo it. And
it feels punitive. It feels...
Oh, yeah, no question. It's punitive.
The person, Ralph Northam was
over that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
We got to talk about, so Governor Northam was the governor when that study came out. He has now been put on the board as, Spanberger has already started there were some vacancies because of battles over Youngkin's confirmation. So she's already gotten some confirmations, some appointments put on. And Northam is one of them. This is absurd. I just want to remind people who Governor Northam is. Governor Northam, in my opinion, shouldn't be appointed to anything anymore. We elected him governor, and then we had both our crowd obviously remembers the leave the baby, have birth the baby and then decide what to do with it. But also we can't get past the Ku Klux Klan blackface picture scandal.
What? So ironic.
Oh my goodness, this is the guy that's going to fix DEI, and that's the yearbook picture we found. And this is not, I'm not hearing people up in arms about this, but this guy doesn't need to be appointed to anything anymore. He was our governor when we found this all out, fine. Virginians couldn't take back the election. But this guy does not need a thriving career in politics, certainly not theoretically right shape, sort of setting right
with our military,
VMI's military on race issues. That's not the guy to put over that. But more than that too, she'll have total majority of her appointments, if she wants them, by July 1. So by July 1, she could have Ralph Northam and all his best friends that she wants to put on there that will care about the DEI stuff. Yeah. So they could fix this the way governors typically shape universities, in the appropriate way, which is you pick a different governance. The different governance sets different strategic visions and goals and all the things. But instead, they're radically trying to, and I thought it was symbolic till the bill, has started to move through the process. I actually thought this is a shout across the bow. Surely they won't do this.
Yeah.
But it is carrying on. It is moving.
This hurts at a gut level for a lot of people. We have friends at church. They are immigrants. They are God-fearing, Bible-loving family. And their son is thrilled to be going there. And so it's so ironic that they're saying that this is, it looks like it's being justified in the name of diversity when this gives opportunity to people like this dear family that are thrilled for their son to be here. And I've been seeing on social media this family and others putting the I stand with VMI.
Yeah, so I'm seeing a lot of those. If you're a Virginian and you know a lot of folks, you're seeing that support.
I hope they get enough pushback for that because it cannot stand. It's just
and I hope
atrocious.
It's a little bit of a wake-up call. There's a lot of VMI alum that probably fell for the, Governor Spanberger is going to be moderate and Democrats aren't going to be radical and all of this, and voted, I would argue, for a party that is going to do radical things. And hopefully this is a wake-up call that they go, wow, if they're willing to take DEI to this level, what else are they going to do? And maybe we'll all vote differently next time.
And they claim to be the party for diversity for immigrants, and this is going to hurt a lot of those people that have opportunity through this, that it hurts them.
Absolutely.
So anyway, well, Victoria, before we get into the latest in the legislature, we were remiss last week in not sharing feedback from our audience, and we had gotten lots of it. So I wanted to give you a chance to comment on some of this, and I'm just going to start. Here's one person's comment. It's possible that the example of Virginia, since we've been talking about this, I wanted to bring this one up. It's possible that the example of Virginia will be a warning to conservative voters in other states, resulting in better outcomes elsewhere. It's too bad that it's us, though. So that's an optimist take.
And I have, candidly, I've been asked to do a lot of interviews with just different media, news, national news stuff, because they're seeing this as, is this the warning sign, on the more conservative side. And so I do think that's been noticed. And yes, I wish it weren't us. I'd rather be warned by some other state.
God can use it redemptively.
Yes.
All right.
But we could I think we've already warned everybody enough. So if we want to roll back and start getting back to normal, that would be cool too.
All right. Gloria Jean is wondering, when can Southern Virginia split from Northern Virginia, or SVA split from NVA is kind of what she had on there.
Yeah, I mean, this is a common retort many of us have when things go wrong, because, of course, we know that the voting bloc is so heavy around D.C. and it is so liberal, and it has spread. You know, it was Arlington, Alexandria, and then it spread out to Fairfax. Now we're dealing with liberals in Loudoun and Prince William. So I get the sentiment. Now, here's what I would say to that, though. And of course, there's the stuff floating around the internet about make DC square again, which would rope back in some of our Northern Virginia. It's kind of a, I think we might have mentioned that.
I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah, it's it's kind of a funny thing. I don't think we're going to go make DC square again. That's a whole history thing there.
Yeah.
But what I would say to that is, yes, it's tempting and it makes for good jokes. And yeah, sure. I mean, we wish our voting bloc wasn't what it is in Northern Virginia, but I think we have to look at generational wins. I want us to be people who don't think about running away or pushing people out. I want to think about mindset change, that we want to, I want us to be influencers, that we think about what are we doing right now for the next generation so that the voting fundamentally changes in Virginia. A lot of people think about, well, maybe I can just move somewhere. And yes, I mean, if you look at where most people are moving, literally if you look at the
Florida.
list of states where people are moving into, it's all the conservative
Florida,
states.
Texas.
So, Democrats love to, our particular ones in our legislature often say this thing about, or any proposal they want, it's good for business. Any proposal they don't want, people aren't going to want to move here. They literally tried to say abortion was necessary or employees wouldn't want to come be in Virginia. If we don't give away abortion in our insurance and all this stuff. But the thing is, conservative states with good conservative pro-life policies, they've got more people moving into them.
Absolutely.
And so
more businesses going there.
Yes. And so I do think our principles are good for business, make it a place that we want to live. But we just got to get Virginia back there. We can't give up on an entire Commonwealth, or we have great conservatives in and among the liberals in Northern Virginia. And I just want them to be able to have more influence. I want our Speak Up Fairfax team to be able to just keep growing. So anyway, yes, I hear you. I sympathize with the sentiment, but let's make some long-term change.
I hate to throw some more cold water, but what's not going to help is this redistricting plan that's bringing more of Northern Virginia into
and that's why we're going to hope and
Virginia.
pray that the courts uphold the previous court decision and that this thing goes out the window.
All right, let's go on to the next one. Mary shares her exasperation. She says, this information is difficult to comprehend or accept that we're sharing every week during session. Where do these people have the brass to make these radical decisions?
Well, in one sense, it's extremely hard because, yes, every week we get on here and we talk about some really, really unbelievable things they're doing. On the other hand, I will say this, they have conviction about the wrong ideas, and they are willing to run through brick walls to implement their policy. We just don't tend to see that on our side, that level of, there's a little bit of you don't need to do it through power grab. You can do it through actual constitutional methods, but once in a while, I'd love our side to, when they get power, not run over people, not illegally. Democrats are doing some things that are just not appropriate here. But I'm just talking, be brave with your ideas and encourage change.
We need to care that much.
Yeah, I guess it's the passion that I can respect. The methodology is terrible because, again, a lot of this is unconstitutional. A lot of it is a power grab. A lot of it is not the way things are done. Yeah,
well said.
Anyway.
All right, one more question from Maggie. She says, and she's talking about the abortion amendment. She says, this is the back alley abortion constitutional amendment.
Yep.
Also, in Virginia, the age of consent is 18 years old. If a 14-year-old consents to an abortion, she's got consent in quote, consents to an abortion, at what point will the pedophile lobby sue to overturn Virginia age of consent as unconstitutional?
Well, yeah. Pedophilia is real. And unfortunately, the trend, if you look at our General Assembly, the general trend has been, let's make sure these teenagers are treated like adults when we think about sexual things. They have rights to contraception and we don't need parents involved. The general trend of liberals is that these young people need to be treated like adults in all their decision making. I don't think it's irrational to think that the age of consent is going to be a legitimate debate that they try to have at some point, that somehow these people are old enough, there shouldn't be statutory rape. And my goodness. So yes, the abortion amendment is a disaster, and it will be even more of a disaster when that where we're going goes even if it goes even further. So it's a very astute
we already see
comment.
that being talked about in some corners of the internet in different circles, so it's not like it isn't out there.
Yeah, that's correct. And also there's just the reality of the abortion amendment, the coercion that's involved, just even if you're over 18, that consent is not always real consent.
Right.
So,
yeah, we should know this. All right. Well, speaking of the abortion amendment, sadly, this is not the only way that this General Assembly is making it perfectly clear that they do not value protecting the life of the most vulnerable. Please give us an update on that.
Yeah. So in our legislature, we have seen where there's been an attempt on our side to put forward a good pro-life bill, a bill that would honor human life, and that is the Born Alive Infant Protection Act that's been introduced by Delegate Karen Hamilton. She is a new member of our legislature. We're excited to have her. She fills in on that district that was Nick Freitas's, and so it was a big loss as he decided to not rerun, but he gave us a champion for life, so I appreciate that he endorsed her and she moved forward. But the bill basically says that it requires that every licensed physician who attempts to terminate a pregnancy would have to do everything medically possible to save that life if the actual child was born alive, which does happen. Stunning, but there are people on this planet today whose testimony is, I survived a botched abortion, and here I am today. Please, and they participate in the pro-life movement.
And they keep saying, the Democrats keep saying, oh, this isn't necessary. It's already in the law that a baby born alive should be protected. They keep saying that. And yet going back to Northam, he's on the record.
Yeah, and he's a doctor. So when he was saying it, I think that's what shocked the nation so much about what he said is, baby born live, then we make the decision.
Yeah.
Him being a doctor gave him more credibility that he actually knows what happens in those situations. So it was just super alarming. And also our law has a little bit, it speaks to a little bit of this, but it starts at 28 weeks. Well, we know viability is 21 weeks. So our law is totally silent on doing anything to help from 21 to 28 weeks at all. And there's no real teeth to if you don't, right? And there's just, the law is insufficient even at the 28 weeks and on. So there's a lot that needs to be done. This bill is a great step forward. But of course, should I get to the fate of the bill?
Yeah, I know, sadly, our audience will not be shocked to know that this bill once again failed. I mean, this bill has faithfully been brought up by Nick Freitas. Number of years. So it's sad that we can't even get above that level of barbarity to say that we are going to resuscitate an infant lying on the table.
You'd think if they don't want to be publicly on that side of the issue, you'd think honestly that they would just let this go. If they know it doesn't happen very often, they claim it never happens, but it doesn't happen very
what's
often.
The harm with
you kind of think
it?
They should just, but they know any they just are unwilling to give anything on that point. Anyway, sorry.
Well, this wasn't the other life issue that was, being debated that same afternoon. It is interesting that they discussed these two things the same afternoon. There was a euthanasia bill being debated. I think this was in a Senate subcommittee. First, the Senate subcommittee voted to approve a bill legalizing physician-assisted suicide. Tell us what's going on with that.
Yeah, so it's Senate Bill 359, and it's introduced by Senator Boysko, and basically it would have allowed so-called the medical profession, which just once you start talking about them taking human life, I don't even know if I can call them a doctor anymore because they've taken this oath to do no harm. But anyway, it would allow them to prescribe an adult diagnosed with a terminal condition, something that would end their life. And yes, I think it's very interesting that it happened on the same day. And the sponsor even seemed to connect the dots.
Yeah. That stood out to me. This is, yes, you said Senator Boysko from Fairfax. She made this comment in the middle of all that, alluding to the fact, she basically was saying, well, we've discussed other issues. Here's the quote, where we, quote, trust patients and their providers. And that seemed to me a pretty strong reference to the debate over the abortion amendment, because their line is always, well, we trust patients and providers. But I just found it fascinating that she was actually the one connecting those dots between the abortion debates and the euthanasia debates.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that she just keeps using the word provider. In abortion, they want to make it as wide open as possible that it's not even just a doctor. And I'm sitting here thinking, you're trying to convince people this is going to be really narrow and it's going to have to really be medically certified. It's not going to be willy-nilly that somebody just takes their life. And you can't even use the word doctor when you're like, it's just, they're so used to just, anyway. I thought that was odd.
Argument, though, being made, the same argument being made for two bills that grossly degrade human life?
Well, I think the bottom line is the trust of the American people in their providers has been chipped away by the fact that they take human life. It's chipped away when you have lawsuits. We mentioned last time, when you have a detransitioner that has to sue because a doctor was part of ruining their lives. I mean, to be honest with you, yes, doctors are amazing in most of the cases, but the reality is they're taking human life here. So yeah, I don't have all that trust, and in other cases, like they've been involved in these gender and other things. Like I just, they've got to stop making it sound like a doctor is infallible and therefore anything they decide is perfectly good, and then try to tell us it's okay for them to take human life. I'm not going to buy it.
That's how we got some of those weird COVID situations.
Yes.
And I mean, we could go into other so-called providers on
Big Pharma has some
right
issues,
now.
And doctors are right there part of that. I mean, it's not good.
All right. Well, I thought it was interesting. There was just a lot of passion and prayer going on in this discussion. We're going to put on the screen here for our YouTube viewers a picture of Senator Chris Head actually clasping his hands in prayer. This is from the Richmond Times that actually had a big photo of him praying in the middle of all this.
Yeah, Chris is a faithful believer, and it's hard. As hard as it is for us to watch it on the outside, I think it would be even harder to be a legislator on that committee who's part of a vote. Obviously, he's going to vote the right way, but those moments have to be brutal, and I appreciate that he takes that moment to pray for a great outcome on a really terrible situation.
What area does he represent again?
He's out in the valley, so he's out on the western side of the state.
God's country.
And just a wonderful man.
All right. Well, there was some good news for a change.
Yes, so his prayers worked, I guess.
Apparently the prayers
worked because this bill actually did die. And anytime a really crazy bad idea dies in this General Assembly, it is a real moment of rejoicing. They voted it down. It was 8-7, so very narrow. But 2 Democrats were part of voting it down. So it wasn't a party line. So many bills are just straight, Republicans versus Democrats down here lately. And I just want to call out the 2.
Yeah, they should be thanked.
Yes, we should absolutely be thanking them. So Skylar Van Valkenburg was one, and Letitia Aird was the other, both from the Henrico area.
Yeah,
so
I always stumble over
I'm
her
rarely
name.
proud of my home area. But
those are both from Henrico. Is there any significance to 2 of them from Henrico being the ones to defect on that?
Yep. So,
I mean, why is there any reason why, or is that just like...
I think it happens. I mean, they probably have, your local delegation a little bit better because you spend a little bit more time together, so they may have had conversations about it, but I can't swear that that's true.
Well, I was surprised by that. I don't know if you were, but that took me by surprise. And let's just hear from the Democrats about why they defected. Yeah. So here's a clip of Senator Van Valkenburg explaining exactly why he voted it down.
I'm ultimately going to vote no on this bill today because I think the culminating thing for me was seeing what had happened in Canada and seeing the kind of legislative, bureaucratic, and kind of professional expansion of what this bill is and what it turned into. And I've been around here long enough to know that when a door opens, a lot of people try to push through it, and a lot of people take it in different ways. And to me, what we've seen in Canada is minors, people with mental health diagnoses. We've seen doctors who have said yes to everybody that comes before them. And ultimately, I know that's not what this bill does, but my worry about moving forward, I spoke to the patron yesterday, and she asked me to rethink about it, and I did. I woke up early this morning thinking about it. But ultimately, I just worry about what happens next. And as a result of that, I am going to be voting no today.
Well, what did you think about his comments, specifically about he's worried about what happens next if they pass something like this, especially in light of Senator Boysko going to great lengths to kind of downplay how narrow, any of those concerns and really emphasize, this bill is very narrow.
I mean, I think he's right on the money because this is not a brand new idea. So we've watched it play out in places. And I think that's what he's saying is, look, this, particularly in Canada, that's one really obvious place we've watched this play out, is not going well, and it's not narrow. And it is, him pointing out that it turns into way more than someone who is terminally ill decided by a couple of, conversations with the doctor. In Canada, it has been, it has been overused. There's concern that the insurance companies now, once you have that, it alleviates the pressure. I mean, the medical system should be set up to do everything possible to save a patient at all times. And hospitals already fight this from a profit perspective because patients get expensive in their end days, and insurance companies. And so the reality is those two entities don't have incentive to push to keep somebody alive. They actually have monetary incentives to say if they're not going to live however long anyway. And so he's just saying, look, I don't know that your intentions, that maybe the start of it is bad. I think he kind of gave her sort of a, this might be narrow now, but this isn't where it ends. And he's right. Yeah. This never ends.
Right.
Narrow bills become very wide laws very fast.
Well, we're not out of the woods yet. I guess there's at the time we were recording, there's another version. So let's hope that
Delegate Hope has a version, and we are hoping. I mean, it may pass the House, so we may have a while. We don't know what it's going to do in the House, so it may have a while till it gets back to the Senate committee. It will have to go before these same individuals. So the hope is just that they keep their convictions, and when the next bill comes through, bills are slightly different sometimes. But I hope his main concern remains, and that we still have these two votes when we need them.
Yeah, so everyone be praying over that, and do take a moment to thank those two Democrats for voting the right way. We should thank them when we have the opportunity.
Absolutely.
All right, let's end on another positive note, Victoria. So by the time people will have heard this, we will have had our Don't Tread on Parents' Day. Went great. We're going to be sharing some pics and videos next time with you. Don't have those quite yet.
Yes.
But also, there's something really encouraging happening at the local level with the Safe Zone for Life movement. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we're super pleased to still see Lynchburg, city of Lynchburg, is moving forward with a proposal to zone out abortion centers. And so February 12th, right around the corner, hopefully you're hearing this before February 12th, they're going to have a hearing, and we have folks turning out. And I'm just thrilled to see, because we know in Bristol, it was we got to a certain point and the city attorney and the zoning just sort of stymied it.
Yeah.
So we're always happy when there's a hearing. It's actually, moving forward, and we're hoping for wonderful things in that vote, and that we can at least have a city lead the way and say, we're not going to do it here.
All right. So pray over that. There's a lot to be in prayer over, and also be communicating with your elected officials. We need to both pray and speak up. As I always say, remember, we are stronger when we speak together, so don't give up doing that. And one way that helps you do that is to stay in tune with our action alerts. During this General Assembly time, our policy team is putting out action alerts on what's happening down to the wire almost every day, letting you know when to contact your legislators on which bills. So if you are not already signed up for our email alerts, you need to do that. Go to familyfoundation.org. Make sure you are signed up at the Get Involved bar at the top of the website. You can sign up for those alerts. Also, I love getting your comments and questions. I love to run those by Victoria and get her take on them, so keep those coming. Be sure and share our podcast on YouTube. You can get that at the Family Foundation YouTube channel, Family Foundation of Virginia, and also at the audio-only version. You can find Speak Up Virginia on Apple and Spotify, and share that. Thank you for standing with us. We'll see you next time.